Greetings, music lovers. Daniel Kremer coming at you with another trailer from hell. Now, one of my favorite unsung, overlooked classic Hollywood directors is Irving Rapper. His biggest hit was Now Voyager, the Bette Davis classic, but he also gave us Deception and The Corn is Green, which are two other Bette Davis classics. The Adventures of Mark Twain, The Brave One, Marjorie Morningstar, Forever Female with Ginger Rogers and William Holden, The Voice of the Turtle with Ronald Reagan, and the first movie adaptation of The Glass Menagerie, among others. I'm personally fond of 1941's One Foot in Heaven. There's a great scene in that involving a minister's first experience going to the cinema. It's a magical little sequence in my book. You should see, if not that whole movie, that one scene. I love that scene dearly. I'd make the argument that along with Vincent Minnelli and George Cukor, Rapper was the Hollywood auteur with the biggest queer sensibility. And yes, I would call him an auteur. And like Cukor and Minnelli, he was a gay man with a special flair for mise-en-scène and staging. Not to stereotype, but I happen to connect with that for more than one reason. And I'll tell you, Rapper's staging really is something. And today's movie, Rhapsody in Blue from 1945, is an epic biopic of George Gershwin. It is not faithful to the true story of his life, and in some instances, like this one, I personally say, who's counting? I'd counter by saying that as a piece of cinema, there's a lot more here than critics and historians have given it credit for. So let's applaud it on that account. Let's strike up the orchestra to rhapsodize Irving Rapper's Rhapsody in Blue, starring Robert Alda, Alan Alda's father. Of course, you would expect a trailer for a movie about Gershwin to use Gershwin music to sell the film, and this trailer certainly goes that route in spades, hard. This film was an early roadshow attraction, with an overture medley orchestrated by Warner Brothers' music director Ray Heindorf. This was a really big movie for them in 1945. Production started in 1943, with Rapper first wanting Tyrone Power for Gershwin, but the star was off serving in the military at the time. He then suggested John Garfield and Cary Grant, but Jack Warner rejected them in favor of contract player Robert Alda, who Rapper later pronounced had the charisma of an amoeba. Ouch. He continued, "Look, I loved him in Guys and Dolls, but not as Gershwin." When Jack Warner turned around and hired Cary Grant to play Cole Porter Night and Day a year later, Rapper had a choice dust-up with him. I personally think Alda is perfectly splendid, if just a tad underwhelming, but I can appreciate the film on basically every other count. Many appear as themselves, most notably Oscar Levant, who had 3 functions: Alda's piano hand double, instrumentalist on the soundtrack itself, and portraying himself on screen. Let's add a 4th function. He rattled off the film's best lines with panache. My personal favorite? Tell me something, George. If you had to do it all over again, would you still fall in love with yourself? His commemorative performance of Rhapsody in Blue ends the film on a high note. Both Yankee Doodle Dandy and Rhapsody in Blue set the pace for the musical biopic, and one of them was the Jolson story. That was a Columbia picture. There's an interesting story for you. Jolson appears as himself in this picture, but after seeing how the resulting film fudged Gershwin's life story, he refused Jack Warner's proposals and decamped to another studio so that they could tell his life story more faithfully, which was a big slap in the face considering that Jolson had been a Warner talent ever since making The Jazz Singer at the studio. But the soul of the film really rests in its musical sequences, and they are exquisite.